So I would like to call the business meeting of the Portland Board of Public Education to order. It is Thursday, April 12th, and the Portland Board of Public Education is meeting at Casco Bay High School, room 200. May I ask the superintendent to call the roll?
Yes, Madam Chair. Mr. Atkinson?
Here.
Ms. Seeliger?
Here.
Ms. Davis?
Here.
Ms. Vendil?
Here.
Ms. Thompson?
Here.
Ms. Morioni is not here. Mr. Rodriguez?
Presente.
Mr. Balfons?
Here.
Ms. Farah? Ms. Yuri? Ms. Clater? And Ms. Power-Rakowski? And Chair Tabarro.
Here, and Ms. Morioni did apologize. She couldn't make it this evening. She is doing college visits with her son. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And where this is a special meeting, I did not prepare a chair's report this evening, and we do not have a report of the students. So I will turn to, I believe the superintendent has a brief report.
I do. I want to begin by reminding everyone that school will be out for the April break starting today. So starting tomorrow through April 22nd. School will be back in session on April 23rd, and I would like to wish all of our students, families, and staff a great spring break. For those staying here, I hope and pray that spring break will actually look and feel a little bit like spring. This afternoon, in partnership with ConnectEd's Starting Strong initiative, we held a community visioning exercise to help shape Portland's vision for early childhood education. The outcome of this meeting and other similar opportunities that will be coming up is the development of a strategic plan on how we can provide public and private partnerships to make sure that all students can access quality early childhood learning opportunities to meet their families' needs. We're grateful to Board Member Rodriguez, who was there, and to the many other stakeholders who made time to attend, and I look forward to presenting the plan in the fall. Also this afternoon, Drummond Woodsum hosted a press conference to explain the lawsuit that was filed yesterday on behalf of our student, Deering Jr. Alan Munga, against the National Endowment for the Arts to allow him to represent Maine in the National Poetry Out Loud competition. We, the Portland Public Schools, joined the litigation as a plaintiff because we strive to provide access to excellent learning opportunities to our students regardless of their immigration status. And this is clearly a case where we need to take action to stand by that commitment. I'm grateful to the board for taking this stand and to the many staff who advocated all along for Alan throughout this process. Alan, if you don't know him, is a remarkable young man, and I am looking forward to a resolution that hopefully does the right thing by him. And this concludes my report.
Thank you. Report of the Secretary. Consideration and action to approve the meeting minutes of April 3rd, 2018. Is there a motion? Ms. Seeliger, seconded by Ms. Davis. Are there any questions on the meeting minutes? Ms. Davis?
I think, as I remember when I read through them, that actually the workshop shows, for the workshop for hall naming, I think it's shown at the end of the agenda, which was where it was scheduled to happen, but it actually did happen at the beginning. So to be completely accurate, we probably just ought to reflect that in the minutes.
Okay.
That it was held at the start of the meeting.
Okay. Ms. Mendel, did I see her? Okay. Any other questions on the minutes? Seeing none, is there any public comment on the meeting minutes? Seeing none, any board discussion? And so with that change, all those in favor of approving the meeting minutes of April 3rd, 2018, please indicate. It's unanimous. And we don't have report of committees, and we do not have consent items. Moving into old business, we have consideration and action to approve the FY19 budget in the amount of $111,966,948. Is there a motion? Ms. Bendel, seconded by Mr. Atkinson. And would the superintendent like to speak to the motion?
Yes, Madam Chair. As everybody here knows, this has been a challenging budget process. We were impacted by a significant reduction in state funding, and this reduction resulted in changes to the state funding formula, and especially the increase in the City of Portland's valuation. That resulted in the school district receiving $3.5 million less than what we needed to receive, what we expected to receive. I want to stress, as I have throughout the process, that this is a revenue problem, not a spending problem. My original budget request is very close to the projected budget for 2019 that was included in the 2018 multi-year budget. Over the past month, staff have worked diligently to provide background information to board and community members about the proposed budget. And I believe that the Finance Committee has done a significant amount of work that included costing out multiple reduction options, including a proposed set of reductions that would have reduced the budget by almost $4 million. I believe that the Finance Committee carefully evaluated those cuts and advanced a budget that reflects the district's commitment to quality education and advancing the work of the Portland Promise. I look forward to the discussion and vote tonight.
Are there any questions on the motion? Ms. Bendel?
Oh, well, not questions, but for, just so that the public is aware, there are a series of amendments that we will be putting forward for consideration and action to slightly reduce the FY 2019 budget, but those are in the context of savings that we found in certain areas that we didn't have when the Finance Committee had voted. So these are not eliminations of any additional positions. They're just savings that we were able to find in health insurance as well as utility charges with the city that came in after the Finance Committee's process.
Thank you for that clarification. Any other questions on the motion? Seeing none, I would open it up now for public comment on the motion. So this is public comment on the budget, and again, the same rules as earlier apply. Please keep your comments to 3 minutes, state your name and address, and approach the podium. I knew we'd have at least one.
It's me. Good evening. My name is David Hopkinson of 9 Grafton Street. I respectfully ask for a 42% increase in speaking time, but fear not, that's only just over a minute. Could this please be approved? Thank you. We are proud of you. You are showing us in this community that you have the courage to say what is right, what is needed, and what you will and won't stand for. I genuinely appreciate that commitment. Please do not let that courage wane over the next few weeks. The superintendent's original budget should be passed as proposed with no cuts or concessions. While running for city councilor, Councilor Ali stated, we have to come up with something that is fair to taxpayers and creates an equitable learning environment for our kids. This statement is on the mark. Both taxpayers and students must be taken into consideration. However, this is a revenue problem, not a spending problem. Some elected officials have asked Portland to be compared in education funding to Biddeford, Bangor, and some other forgettable place. This is garbage. This opens the door to comparing our great state to, say, Oklahoma. In this comparison, we can also feel good about ourselves. Our teachers have not yet needed to walk off their jobs to force a government to act on a revenue problem. Yet, we have a budget to make. The most glaring difference between the city side of the budget and the education side is the school board's lack of authority to raise fees to counter increased costs. Yet, the City Council gives you a number to hit. Costs from the collective bargaining agreement alone have gone up by more of a percentage than the City Council wants for the entire increase. Again, garbage. Well, actually, it's trash. Why? Because trash is a great example of how the City Council is able to increase their revenue while not increasing taxes. In 2000, when pay-as-you-throw was introduced, a small Portland trash bag, the ones most commonly used, were 48 cents. Today, after 3 increases, the same trash bag for the same service is $1.35. Not a big dollar difference, like the experts' proposed increase on the median property tax. but a 181% increase on a fee to the city. 181%. In campaigning for this increase, the City Council repeatedly used Falmouth as a benchmark for the cost. In a special announcement dated June 22nd, Portland's official Twitter account stated the city would have new parking rates effective July 1st, increasing from $1 to $1.25 an hour, a 25% increase for the same service you were provided before. Yahoo has more examples if you need them. You don't have that luxury. All you can do is what is right, what you have heard from your constituents, and what you have learned from the expert. This is a revenue problem. Why are we not talking about revenue? We're still talking about cuts and concessions. I reached out to all the state senators and representatives asking about school funding. I received many more replies than I expected and was both pleased and frustrated. I was pleased that it appeared they were working on it. I was frustrated because if they're working on it, why are we not showing them exactly why we need it? Why we need it done now and why we can't wait any longer. One rep replied, I proposed a local option sales tax bill this last session for just this reason. I got it out of committee with an ought to pass and had the Senate ready to vote. It was sunk by the Bangor delegation because they wanted revenue sharing. Another rep responded, I agree with you 100% that there needs to be a change in the way we fund our schools. I strongly favor sending more education dollars from the state to Portland and would also favor local option sales taxes as you described. So, what's going on? All the pieces are there. One, a budget that is incrementally closing the education gap, enforcing the Portland Promise, and helping us become the best school district in the state. Thank you so much for the time you put in making that. Two, state and local officials that know a change in education funded is needed and have even tried to move forward. Three, a community that will help cover the costs in the short term to ensure every child is given the educational opportunities they deserve. To think this is about line item cuts to an entire music program or one general music class would be ignorant. Any cut that is made because of a revenue problem is not acceptable. It is about a complete change in how we fund our schools. It is about saying sorry. Portland got screwed by the state and we need taxpayers to pick up the bill for the next year or so while we immediately put the power of the economic center of this state to work on behalf of itself. Be the change tonight, unanimously. We support you. We are here. We're not going anywhere. We love our uncomparable city, and we simply ask for a new way of doing things. Please, unanimously, send the budget to the City Council. Thank you very much. Appreciate all of your time.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Sorry, Scott.
That's okay.
Is this for comment?
For the budget,
as well?
yep.
John Thibodeau, 114 Clinton Street. And thank you, too, for all of your work. And just want to encourage you to stand strongly behind the budget work that you've done. And I've had some communications with city councilors, and I'm sure most of you know this, but there seems to be a gap of communication and understanding between the school board and the city council. So I would just really encourage you to reach out and to communicate with them. Not only is there a gap, I think there's some mistrust as well. So I would just ask you as a body and as individual members to communicate, if you can, personally with the City Council to try to bridge that gap and improve this process. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name's Kevin Brewster. I live at 68 Quebec Street in Portland, and I'd just like to thank you for having the courage to support a budget that advances and sustains a quality education for all of Portland students. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Michelle Walton. I'm a Presumpscot parent. I'm not going to take up much of your time since David already did that. I'm going to back what David said and encourage you to please move forward and pass the budget on to city councilors. And hopefully, I know we'll be going back to fight with them to put it on the ballot. So I just encourage you and thank you very much for your time and effort.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Chris Corson. I have children in both Lincoln and Hall. And undoubtedly, their experiences has been wonderful. I don't think anyone in this room could doubt the power of a good education, a good place to learn, a safe place to learn. What I heard earlier today, to me, also makes a lot of sense, that there should be, and I wanted to speak to it too, more of a symbiotic relationship with the two entities around city government. I think there's ways to make that better. I think as a taxpayer, I struggle immensely when I go into just City Hall and see whatever a need for new computer systems that tell people this is room 203, or staff that need iPads, desktops, laptops, tablets, and all the other waste that goes on in city government. I will say for me, I 100% support teachers in schools. But I also, for people that reached out to me, I've been a social worker in Portland for over 20 years, that on either side of it, if it's here, this budget, city council's budget, that people who are not in this room and can't afford to be here because they're working, or they're disabled, or they're veterans, are being pushed out. And I think there's a time and a place to talk about that as well, maybe in your other meetings. I don't think it's just about kids. I think you're in a great position to do the work that you do. I respect the work that you do. It's hard work that you do. It's unfortunate, as folks spoke prior, that our legislators and our people that ask for leadership and crave for leadership at City Hall are not more proactive in the process of reaching out to those people and finding solutions, rather than just constantly complaining about not being able to lead. But I wanted to put that out there to the group as you move forward in your budget, as you're moving forward talking to City Council, that there are a lot of people that are in the shelters in Portland, working people, that aren't going to be able to afford to stay here with budget increases this year, next year, or the year after. And we don't hear from these people. And that's one of the reasons really why I wanted to come today. A lot of those people asked me to be here because they're never here. As we look behind us, it's probably going to be the same people that come time after time. And I respect those people that are here that want to advocate and be part of the community. But there are people out there that are hurting. And you can't say sometimes you're in support of something 98% of the time, and then say you're for lower rents, you're for rent control. The two don't match. I just wanted to say that I really appreciate the work that you do. I've had a wonderful experience. I plan to have a wonderful experience with my son going to Deering High next year and my daughter going to Lincoln. But there are people out there that are not being heard, and they're hurting. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Martha White. I'm a teacher at Lincoln Middle School. I teach world languages and English as a second language. And I just wanted to thank you for the work that you've been doing to work on the budget. It's tough. It's challenging. Particularly as a teacher, I want to especially express my appreciation for your willingness to work with our superintendent as he puts forward his first budget in his tenure in that role. We're really fortunate to have someone as committed as he is, and as all the people he's brought forward with him in the new, semi-new central office administration. And it feels like a very positive time for us in Portland to be able to be working with Superintendent Botana and all of his staff, and you, as you recognize that the work we have ahead of us is important, and the budget is necessary for us to do that work. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, we'll close public comment and move into board discussion. Mr. Rodriguez.
No, not yet.
I was just wondering if Ms. Vendel wanted to offer one of the amendments at this time.
Yeah. So I wanted to put forward an amendment. Like I said before, there are two, but The first amendment is to amend the Finance Committee's recommended budget by $45,230 to reflect additional savings found in our health insurance that wasn't previously accounted for when we voted out our budget.
Is there a second to that amendment, Ms. Thompson? Are there questions on that amendment? Is there any additional information that Alicia
If there are
did-
any questions, Alicia would be available to
Did you wanna share
answer those
anything?
questions.
So the health insurance amendment is due to we projected in our budget that the health insurance increase would be 9%, and it came in at 7.66%. So during the Finance Committee, it was an estimate of how much we thought that we would save, and the $45,000 represents the actual amount that it'll go down. So it's just about $113,000 overall.
Any other questions? Seeing none, is there any public comment on the amendment? Seeing none, any board discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of amending the Finance Committee's recommended budget by $45,230 to reflect additional savings in the health insurance, please indicate. It's unanimous. So we're back to the main motion. Is there a second amendment? Ms. Bendel, would you like to make? Oh, Mr. Rodriguez.
Thank you, Chair. So I'm proposing an amendment. I propose to amend the Finance Committee's recommended budget by $124,106 to reflect reduced utility charges from the city based on guidance from the City Finance Director. And I believe Alicia can also give us a little bit more information and background on that item.
Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Belfont. And yes, Alicia.
So that's essentially the whole of it. We heard from the city yesterday that some of the chargeback utilities that we are charged from them that they are then responsible for have been reduced, and the total number is $124,106. So they felt confident that we should reduce our budget by that amount to reflect those reductions.
Great, thank you. Any questions? Mr. Atkinson.
Can I just ask, are there specific utilities that were included, or is that just a lump?
It was a lump at this time as they sort of discussed their, how all of their utilities work together. So that was the extent of the feedback that we got.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, is there any public comment on this amendment? Seeing none, any board discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of amending the Finance Committee's recommended budget by $124,106 to reflect reduced utility charges from the city based on guidance from the City Finance Director, please indicate. It's unanimous.
And can we find out who seconded that motion? I missed
Mr.
that.
Belfont.
Mr. Belfont.
So we are back to the main motion, and I would open it up for discussion. Ms. Bendel.
Madam Chair, if we could get the superintendent to read the updated motion that reflects the amendments.
I can read it for you. It's consideration and action to approve the FY19 budget in the amount of $111,797,612.
Thank you.
Any board discussion? Mr. Atkinson.
Sure. Clearly, I think everybody in the room is aware that this is an issue. This budget process has been extremely difficult because the state yanked the rug out from under us with $3.5 million reduction in our subsidy amount. I'm just trying to get some things that we all agree on. I think also we can all agree that property taxes are not the right way to pay for education. I think that the people of Maine and the people of Portland were aware of that, and that's why they supported the referendum last year to increase the income tax on top wage earners to fund the budget. I think it's a very difficult situation that we're in because, as was mentioned in the public comments, we don't have the ability to raise revenues, but we do have a plan. We have a vision for where our district is going, and we've tried to find, I think, a good middle ground where we have followed our plan and the directives of our plan, of our comprehensive plan, the Portland Promise, to inform our decision making throughout this process. So I'm going to be happy to support the budget tonight as it stands. I know it's difficult. The hardest part for me is that I think whichever way we go, if we cut more out, or if we keep it where it is, or raise it, people are going to be hurt by this. Property taxpayers, especially those at the lower end, are at the lower end of the income spectrum, I should say, are undoubtedly going to suffer. And if we drastically reduce our programming or our budgets or our teachers, then it's the students that need the most support who are going to suffer on that end. And so it's a really difficult situation. And I've really appreciated all of my board colleagues engaging in this work and understanding the situation and being committed to making the best decisions that we can make for the students of Portland and for the city of Portland. So I'm not happy, I guess, with the situation that we're in, but I think that we've done very good work in getting to this point. So, thanks.
Ms. Seeliger?
I would just like to thank everyone who has worked really hard on the budget, including Board Member Vendel for all of her hard work this year, and also to our superintendent for taking a budget that was very difficult and really looking at it from a different angle and putting in the work and the time. So I'm happy to support, and I'm looking forward us moving forward as a board for the budget this year. So thank you.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Thank you, Chair. I really wasn't planning on saying anything tonight. I think throughout the process, from the committee level to the full board level, I've been consistent in where I stand and what my priorities are. But I couldn't resist sharing a few things with my colleagues and with the community today. Part of the reason why I didn't want to speak was I don't want anyone to think that I am neither grandstanding, politicizing the process, or bringing Washington, D.C. style tactics to whatever the hell that means. But I did want to share something. And so this morning I got up early and I wrote myself a page, and I'm going to try to get through this without breaking down. So nearly 1/3 of U.S. youth aged 12 to 17 have experienced 2 or more types of childhood adversity that are likely to affect their physical and mental health as adults. The CDC says that this is in theory. It's scientific fact backed by hundreds of published articles. And the CDC says that 1 out of 8 children suffers from enough trauma to cause lasting damage. We don't have to go far to see this reality. Right here in Maine, our surrounding districts have recently dealt with terrible losses. Joshua Rowe, a Westbrook High School senior, took his own life last fall. Sam Mercer, a student in Scarborough, took his own life 2 weeks ago. This past Monday, I was moved to tears when Junot Diaz, a Dominican-born author, one of my favorite all-time authors, wrote a powerful essay in The New Yorker describing in painful detail his experience being raped as an 8-year-old child and how it affected his life. I could go on and on because unfortunately these cases are found all too frequently. It is a shame that we do not act with a real sense of urgency to provide care for these children. Now, I say that recognizing and sincerely appreciating the immensely challenging work that many social workers, counselors, and school staff, along with many organizations and support systems that currently exist, are doing every day. If it were your own child suffering, I know you would agree with me that it is simply not enough. As a member of the Portland Board of Public Education, I feel that I have about 7,000 students that I must advocate for as much as I would for my own daughter. With the Portland Promise whole student goal, this board committed themselves to reach a target stating that 95% of students will feel valued and connected to a caring adult at school. I believe this budget, as it stands right now, moves us closer to achieving that benchmark and to make a real difference in the lives of our students. When I hear of some of the challenges this city and state are facing today, from the opioid crisis, homelessness, and childhood food insecurities, just to name a few, I sincerely believe that investing in our schools, in the development of social-emotional learning programming, and a focus on equity is where we get the biggest bang for our buck. This budget and the superintendent's priorities represent a proactive approach at helping our community. When I am done with my service on this board, I don't want to look back and brag about my skillful management of budgets and how I helped to overcome difficult financial situations. Instead, I want to say that I worked with my colleagues to save lives, to improve achievement for all of our students, to narrow the achievement gap and opportunity gaps in our schools, because that, I believe, is the best way to grow this city and ensure we have a strong foundation that would allow us further growth and a strong and connected community. Thank you.
Other board member comments? Ms. Bendel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I obviously encourage my colleagues to support the budget that's in front of you. As the chair of the Finance Committee, many of us had spent long, grueling hours. I think we have a record of 8 meetings, working on this budget and meeting with our counterparts on the city side three times in the process. And I think my colleagues have kind of summarized, where the context of where we are right now. But what I want to urge you to think about is that is the point that Mr. Rodriguez said, that it's, at the end of your term, you want to talk about the lives that you're saving because of public education. And I would urge you to think about this budget as where we were able to get that was able to protect the priorities of the superintendent's work in the comprehensive plan, protect, the things that we value as a school community, preserving elementary class size, preserving equity in our sports, but a way that we can find efficiencies so that we can actually reasonably work with our council to advocate for, what's right for our kids and have that conversation in the community. I really truly believe that this is a compromise budget that we can put together to put our best face forward with the city. And in that context, I really urge you to support this.
Other comments? No? Well, I would just say I'm going to be supporting the budget tonight. I do recognize that we may be facing a challenge going forward with our colleagues on the council. It's, in previous years, I was chair of the Finance Committee for a year, and last year was another challenging budget year. So we've been through this process, and for a long time, we've been able to kind of work our budget at the forefront of the process in order to put forward something that we were more sort of in line with the council's thinking at the forefront of the process. I think that, I've come to believe that this year is quite different. We cut $2 million out of our budget last year. And we are at the point I think our Finance Committee has done a significant job looking at the options for reductions, and we're really at the point where it's getting close to the classroom. It's hard to trim around the edges anymore. And when we talk about what reductions we can make today, it really is a difference, I think, between an education that is acceptable and an education that is great. And Portland schools are great. And those sort of programs where we're able to go a little bit above and beyond and offer something different that meets the needs of our students who would otherwise fall into the gaps. That's what makes the difference in Portland. So I am comfortable supporting this budget tonight. I also recognize that the reductions that have already been made, we're looking at a combined property tax increase, which may be a little bit less than we had thought originally, somewhere around 4.5%. So that, to me, looking overall at one budget year for the whole city is not too big of an ask, I think. There have been years when the school department got additional revenue from the state where the city side needed to increase their budget because general assistance funding was being taken away, and we were able to reduce our side of the budget increase to zero in order to accommodate the city side. So I'm hopeful that through our discussions with the council, we'll be able to come to an understanding that this year is a challenge for us, and so we need to have some leniency on our side of the budget. And then the other thing we're going to have a workshop on at the end of this meeting is around how do we generate revenue going forward, and also how do we look at our physical footprint and anything that may be sort of out of line there. And I think those are both conversations that we seriously need to have, and that kind of in conjunction with this, perhaps this could be a one-year struggle for us if we can address those other two factors in the future. Unless there are other comments, I will call for a vote. All those in favor of approving the FY19 budget in the amount of $111,797,612, please indicate. And all those opposed. So it's 3, 4, 5,
7 to 1.
7 with Ms. Davis. Consideration and action to approve the vote entitled Vote to Approve Submission of School Budget with Additional Local Funds in form presented to this meeting, and that a copy of said vote be included in the minutes of this meeting. Is there a motion? Ms. Thompson, seconded by Ms. Bendel. And would the superintendent or the finance director like to speak to this motion?
Alicia, do you want to speak to this?
So this is really required by state statute for us to calculate what the additional local required is, and it's a fairly complicated formula, but I can guarantee you those numbers reflect the amendments that you made this evening. So this is just a requirement of the state for us to raise the additional amount over the EPS minimum.
And the amendments that we just made do update these figures?
Yes, so those are correct.
So, but not these are correct.
Correct. The agenda numbers are incorrect, but the correct numbers are on the sheet that I passed out to you earlier.
Does
this
everyone
evening.
have that sheet in front of them? Okay, great. Are there any questions on the motion? Seeing none, is there any public comment on the motion?
Just a quick question, the clarification. What is the final amount? And with the health insurance savings piece, just if you could clarify, there was an estimate of 68,000 before, but it's only 45, is that correct? So it's actually about 20,000 less than we thought? Just if you could confirm or clarify that? Thank you.
We had a placeholder in the budget for an increase in health insurance of 10%, and it ended up being, what was it?
7.66.
7.66, which was a difference of $45,230, so we were able to make that reduction.
So the total amount saved is, Alicia, 110,000?
So the total amount of the reduction is 113,000. So the original 68 plus the 45,000 amendment, which reduced the budget.
The total figure is $111,797,612.
And just so everyone knows, and we didn't talk about this earlier, but that brings our tax rate to 11.29% or 6.4% over last year.
I have a question. Can you just explain for everyone that even though our side went up by 6-something%, total with the city only goes up to about 4.6, 4.7?
So our newly calculated tax rate as of this evening with our total budget and the new valuation that we talked about, which is $7.9 billion, our tax rate ends up being $11.29. So combined with the city's proposed tax rate of $11.33 would bring the new rate citywide to $22.62, which is an increase of 97 cents or 4.49% over the total citywide rate of last year. So it's just about 4.5% over last year's total tax rate.
And so we're still on public comment. Is there any other public comment?
Stephen Scharf of Cumberland Avenue. I was late because I was at a City Council Finance Committee meeting. I just not happy. I mean, you've already voted on your budget itself, but I don't think the public is going to vote for a budget with even this amount of increase. And wondering, warn you that I don't think the City Council is going to even go for it. So, but just to explain further, the difference is you're averaging the two numbers together, and that's why it's in between. If you average that's why the tax rate, looks like it's in between. It's an average of the two numbers, really.
And seeing no more public comment, any board discussion on this agenda item? We don't have to amend it because those figures were not part of the motion itself. This is just the new language that we're using.
Sorry, is it okay if I ask a question at this point? There was some discussion about the percentage above EPS that we were that we are at this year, and that's a slight reduction in our percent above EPS versus last year. Is that correct?
So I don't have the exact number. I will get that before the end of the meeting. But last year, we were, I think, 125% of EPS. And at the superintendent's proposed budget, the 113.4, we were at 123. So we will certainly be less than that with 111.7.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of approving the vote entitled "Vote to Approve Submission of School Budget with Additional Local Funds" in form presented to this meeting, and that a copy of said vote be included in the minutes of this meeting, please indicate. 7 in favor and all opposed. Ms. Davis. Consideration and action to authorize the board chair and superintendent to sign a contract between Metro and the Portland Public Schools. Is there a motion? Ms. Seeliger, seconded by Ms. Bendel. Would the superintendent like to speak to this motion?
Yes, Madam Chair. Tonight, we're asking you to approve the contract renewal between Portland Public Schools and Metro to enable our high school students to continue to use Metro for transportation. PPS and Metro have been partners in this venture since 2015, and the three-year contract that has enabled that is coming to an end in June. Staff at both agencies have been working to create a successor agreement, which is what you are considering tonight. At last week's meeting, Greg Jordan, the CEO of Metro, and Fred Barlow, our PPS Director of Transportation, highlighted improvements and changes. As a result of those changes, PPS will pay Metro a fare that is equivalent to 50% of the full one-way cash fare, which is currently $1.50 for local buses. Metro, as you heard, anticipates that a fare increase of either 25 or 50 cents per boarding will be approved by its Board of Directors for implementation in the summer of 2019. So the cost per boarding for PPS students will rise by $1.25 or 25 cents, by 25 cents depending on the fare increase that Metro implements system-wide. Metro does not anticipate any other fare increases during the terms of the agreement. Using the higher estimate for the cash fare increase of $2 and an estimated 260,000 boardings per year, the annual cost of Metro services would be estimated at maximum to be $195,000 in year one and then $260,000 in year two and in year three. Metro guarantees that the PPS cost per boarding of 75 cents will remain valid for the coming year, thus those numbers that I just read to you, and thereby protects PPS from an unanticipated increase during the academic year in the event that Metro should implement its system-wide cash fare prior to June 30, 2019. Metro will add such language to the agreement. Metro has added such language to the attached agreement. Boarding caps, which are the ones that limit the cost that the district will incur, were originally negotiated to protect both BPS and Metro in the event that student ridership was considerably above or below estimates. And we now obviously have 3 years of data, and as you heard at the presentation last week, the boarding caps are not included in the successor agreement because we believe that the usage has stabilized sufficiently. So Metro has been a great partner to PPS. As a result of our partnership, Portland has been able to improve transportation to our middle and elementary school students. Additionally, as part of the partnership, our high school students use Metro not only for school, but they also have access to it for work, for play, and for getting around town year-round. I always look at the value added for our students of learning how to use public transportation as one of the programmatic offerings that our district provides that make it unique to Maine. I appreciate that our students, while using it while still in high school, are learning how to get around town and public transportation. This is a valuable skill to have and is environmentally friendly, and another example of how our programmatic offerings as a district create relevant learning opportunities for our students. So I hope you will approve this contract agreement.
Are there any questions on the motion? Seeing none, is there any public comment on the motion?
Good evening, David Hopkinson, 9 Grafton Street. I'm not prepared with 7 pages of documents to talk about this. The last time that we talked about Metro Bus, I ended up with a problem at the end of the evening, which I brought to all of your attention. And I want to stand here tonight to say thank you to each and every single one of you. The responses I received not only from the school board, but from Metro itself were above and beyond what I expected. I'll take one additional second to just remind everyone that as adults, and especially adults in positions of power, we should never compromise the safety of any child at any level of any education, any background, anything whatsoever. Schools don't mean anything if we can't get them there safely and get them home safely. But truly, thank you very much for your responses. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other public comment on the Metro contract? Seeing none, is there any board discussion? Seeing none, I will call for a vote. All those in favor of authorizing the board chair and superintendent to sign a contract between Metro and the Portland Public Schools, please indicate. It's unanimous. We have a first read to approve a name for the new elementary school, Amanda C. Rowe Elementary School or Fred P. Hall Elementary School, and a first read to authorize a request for proposal for architect and engineering services for the renovation of 4 elementary schools under the Buildings for Our Future plan. And we have a first read to revise policy BEDBA, agenda format. Consideration and action to approve a one-time retirement incentive program for employees covered by Portland Education Association collective bargaining agreement. Is there a motion? Ms. Thompson, seconded by Mr. Atkinson. And would the superintendent like to speak to the motion?
Yes, Madam Chair. As part of the Finance Committee review of the budget and as a result of the approval of the budget tonight, we are asking for approval of a retirement incentive for employees covered under the district's collective bargaining agreement with the Portland Education Association. So that's essentially our certified staff, teachers, counselors, social workers, nurses, therapists, etc. The retirement incentive provides a one-time $10,000 payment to employees who have reached what is known as normal retirement age, as that's defined in Maine statutes. The yield from this retirement incentive, estimated at 18 staff, is included in the budget that you approved earlier. It is projected to save the district about $250,000, and we have already started the process of sharing information with eligible staff and have given them a deadline of April 23rd, the day after spring break, to formally apply for the incentive. You have information in your packets with the information that has been distributed to staff, and Barb Stoddard, our HR director, is here to answer any questions that you may have.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, is there any public comment on the motion?
Good evening. My name is Michelle Lawless, and I have been an employee of the Portland Public Schools for the last 12 years and president of the EdTech Union for the past 2 years. First of all, I'm very happy to hear that the school board is considering a retirement incentive for the teachers. Given the ongoing budget concerns and needs of our district, this proposal seems like a good way to address the constraints of the budget while acknowledging and honoring the longtime service and commitment of our most dedicated staff. I would like to urge the board to also consider an incentive for our ed techs who may be in a position to retire. As you know, our district has one of the most highly qualified ed tech staff, with over 92% of them holding academic degrees. And they're dedicated and served the students of Portland for over 25 years. Like the teachers, the ed techs in retirement have to pay for 55% of their health premiums, so any incentive would help to ease that burden and be greatly appreciated. In the past, the board has honored the hard work and dedication of our ed techs by extending the retirement incentive to them, and I sincerely hope you will consider doing so once again. Thank you very much for all your hard work and your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Stephen Sharp of Cumberland Avenue. I am full approval of the proposal in front of you, and I just want to caution you on expanding it to either ed techs or administrators. The previous program that that the school department had included both groups. But for administrators, it was illogical because you basically were retiring administrator at, say, $80,000, maybe 90. I'm just using that as a number. But you were hiring a new one at $80,000. You weren't saving anything on the administrators. At least one administrator came back and ended up going back to work for the department in another capacity. So it did not work in terms of administrators. It basically provided them some extra money. Also, the fact that it was done over 4 years, in the end, I think hurt the system in the out years and was not wise to frame it that way. In the same way, the administrators, I think the ed techs, I don't know what the average salary for ed techs are, but I don't think there's enough of an incentive there. Another example of not ed techs, but there were a number of lunch staff people who used the incentive, and basically it was half their salary. It was you were retiring somebody who was making about $20,000 a year, paying them $10,000, and then hiring somebody making $20,000 a year. There was no benefit to this. Where with teachers, you're going to be retiring people at the high end and presumably, hopefully, hiring people at the low end. And that's the only other thing I caution on is too often I think the school department hires people more in the middle end, experienced people in the middle end, and don't focus on the people at the low end, right out of college kind of teachers. And that's where our real savings is by hiring our new staff at the more lower end and not looking for people who have multi-year experience elsewhere. Thank you.
Is there any other public comment? Seeing none, is there any board discussion? Ms. Davis.
I think as the board knows, and as I've said before, I think that the board should not be involved in incentivizing or bonusing people in their retirement. I think that is a personal financial decision. And it's one that, to me, as someone who is probably closer to retirement age than anyone else around the dais, I see through a very different lens, because what it is you are incentivizing older people to leave. And with those folks, yes, there is a higher salary, but there's also a huge investment that this district has made in terms of their training and expertise. And I have, while I've served on the board, watched many highly qualified, effective staff walk out the door incentivized by a kind of blue light special. Grab it now because it may not be here next year, which is not how one should plan their retirement. Retirement is a personal and financial decision, and I strongly believe, and I will vote against this because I believe the board has no business being in the middle of it. As well as I understand it, this incentive will actually be applied to people who have already told us they are going to retire. I think it's about 6 of them. So in that case, it simply is a bonus for people who already made the decision. There probably are a number of other staff out there who are just waiting to tell us based on whether or not we pass this. They've already decided, they just haven't told us yet. So I'm not convinced that the savings are really that real. And I've also seen as a board member that we have had higher numbers of people retire when we did not have an incentive. I think it adds an element of uncertainty and bad financial planning and pressure. And I've also seen that happen with staff who have retired because there was the incentive and they weren't sure it'd be there next year, and that really wasn't the right decision for them on a number of different places. So as I've said, I think that we have no business being in the middle of someone's retirement decision. That's a personal and financial decision that should be best left to our staff. And I would love to be able to keep those older staff and their expertise working for us. That is more important to me than the amount that they cost. We've invested in them. I want them to keep working for us as long as they want to. And when they're ready to retire, that's great. That's their decision. I don't want to meddle with it. So I will be voting no on this.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, I will call for a vote. All those in favor of approving a one-time retirement incentive program for employees covered by Portland Education Association collective bargaining agreement, please indicate. And all those opposed. It's 7-1 with Ms. Davis in the negative. All right, we have no personnel this evening. We have no board focus on educational issues. Where it is before the hour of 10 o'clock p.m., we would take public comment on any items not on this evening's agenda. Is there any public comment on items not on this evening's agenda?
Hi, David Hopkinson, 9 Grafton Street. Mine's a question. I'll continue to ask this question every week. I'm wondering if the committee to consider consolidating and closing schools and/or the revenue committee, if that process has begun, and if so, when its meetings may occur, and how the public can become involved from the onset of that. So, thanks.
I will just say that we do have a workshop following this meeting that is going to be the topic of that workshop, or one of the 2 topics of that workshop. So staying here would be the place to get some information at the onset of that process.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other public comment on items not on this evening's agenda? Anything?
3 minutes.
All right. So my question's kind of quick. It kind of goes with, especially with Mr. Rodriguez and others. I called to speak to the superintendent, and you were nice enough to pass me over to the, I think you're a food nutritionist person. She talked, and please speak to Ms. Crocker. I'm not a bad guy. You'd like to talk to me. I just would like, again, that relationship, again, with the school to be better. And what I mean by that is we have a lot of opportunities and a lot of empty spaces where families can go to learn. I feel what I really was moved by your statement about kids and keeping kids safe and reducing trauma and these sorts of things that I was stunned when we knew that this cold front was coming in of freezing weather and we were on school vacation and there's no plan by the other side of the house to say, what are we going to do with these families? And the idea was we'll just get them out to Riverton and have them stay there, which is great. And it's great that people are there and being warm and being taken care of. I just ask for sometimes a better kind of coordination of when we know a lot of families, especially immigrant refugee families, but also just poor families are working, and there's nowhere for their children to go sometimes except for after-school programming. And I've been to after-school programming, and the people there are wonderful, but it's impossible to learn when you're in a room with 2 staff and 40 children screaming. So I asked for the school board to try to be more creative in finding opportunities around food and providing healthy meals and nutrition for families that are at risk, or just any families that are at risk that want a safe place to go, to meet others, to be safe, and to be warm. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to comment on anything not on this evening's agenda? Seeing none, I will close public comment. And again, for the viewing public, we will be moving into a workshop on consolidation and revenue discussion. And with that, I would call for a motion for adjournment. Ms. Thompson, seconded by Mr. Rodriguez. All those in favor? It's unanimous.